of HSMAI San Diego, and he just wants to share some things that are top of mind in the chapter board.
Cool, thank you. I'm going to do it without a mic. All right, so my name is Dan Karras. I'm with Evolution Hospitality. I'm the Corporate Director of Revenue. I'm in year one of a 2-year stint as president of the local HSMAI chapter. We're about 100 people. We focus on education. We have 2 really big focuses in the next couple of years. Number one is kind of continuing our focus on bringing really quality programs to the local area. We had a great state of the industry in January. We had Joe Terzi, we had the TMD, we had the CEO of the convention center, and it was all led by the VP of Sales, Margie Sitton at SDTA. We had over 200 people there. We've joined with HMA every year in February and do like a joint kind of black tie event. The mayor comes, really cool event. But we're about to hit our stride kind of on all of like our kind of education focused programs. So this being one. Next month in May, we're doing one on meta search and travel. We have TripAdvisor, Expedia, and then a rep from a local corporate hotel group coming to speak on Meta, how they use it, how different hoteliers or suppliers can interact with it. June, Star will be back. Actually, someone from Star Analytics will be here to kind of give us our State of the Industry San Diego update. So it'll be kind of year to date, and then their forecast for the rest of 17 and into 18. July and August are kind of fun months. In September, we do a revenue management panel. And then our big one every year is we do a fundraiser and auction in October. It's a Chinese auction, and it's used to raise monies for the San Diego State Hospitality Tourism and Management Program. This year is the first time, and this is by far our biggest focus kind of now going forward. As long as I'm around, this is going to be our big focus. But we're doing a yearly scholarship for one lucky HTM student. We give them $1,000 cash and an all-expenses paid trip to the HSMAI National Leadership Program. Last year it was in Florida. Don't know where it is yet or when it is yet, but it's coming, and this person will win. So we launched in January, so it's a real abbreviated version. It's 6 months. We're actually going to announce the winner in the middle of May, but we'll launch it again in September. It'll run for a full calendar school year. So we'll announce that winner in May of 18. But it's an application, it's an essay, it's a video video essay, and then they also have volunteer hours at different HSMAI specific events. So it's something we're really, really proud of. And again, the October event, our auction, is all about raising money. So we're looking for donations from hoteliers, from suppliers. We come together in a really fun, interactive format. We have actually the voice of the Chargers, the now LA Chargers, but the old voice of the Chargers is our auctioneer, and he's a legit anyway, you know how they sound. I can't replicate it. But it's really fun because it's super interactive. You have like these hands, you have a number, and everybody kind of bids on it, and he's jumping around the room. It's really a lot of fun. And last year we made quite a bit of money. All goes towards HTM program. So. 1, get involved. We have some great programs, and 2, would love to see you guys at that program, kind of giving back to the students and the next generation of hospitality professionals. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions or whatever, see me afterwards.
All right, so quick story about Lauren Gray, and then we're going to introduce him formally, and that is that there's a certification program HSMAI has called Certified Hospitality Business Acumen, and it's a hotel simulation. I don't know if you've ever done it, where you really manage a hotel online for a 12-month cycle, and then you try to return the hotel to profitability, and you benchmark against the other people in the class, and it's make decisions on investment in F&B and staffing and marketing, and we matched up 2 people, and we had a group of about 40, and we had 20 sets, right, of people, 20 different hotel benchmarking, and I was randomly matched up with Lauren Gray. And in the first day, Lauren had the computer and wouldn't allow me to touch it in any way, and at the end of the day, he made all the decisions, and at the end of the day, we were last in the competition, and we both got, and so the next day that we reversed it, the next person would be at the computer, and I did exactly the same thing to Lauren. I made all the decisions, and at the end of the day, I'm from sales and marketing, and Lauren's from marketing. At the end of the day, we were last. All right. So that night, And we didn't like each other very much, by the way. And that night we decided to have a drink. And we decided a strategy, like maybe we'd make decisions together, maybe we'd share knowledge rather than just have knowledge, and we wouldn't work in silos. And at the end of the third day, we did make a change and a shift in position. And where do we end up, Lauren?
First, we beat everybody out of the entire 3 days total. In one day, we beat everybody out of 3 days.
And we've been great friends ever since.
That's true.
So it's working in silos. It was an example of working in silos. You can get some good work done, but working together, what's amazing can happen. So take a moment to take a deep breath, because Lauren's going to go fast, and he's passionate, and he's also very, very smart. So introducing Lauren as one of our partners. Travis Harper is with Booking.com, our series partner for this series of ROCET, and it's my pleasure to introduce Travis.
Thank you, Fran. So yes, very excited to introduce Lauren here. I actually had the pleasure of listening to him speak at another event before, and he is as advertised, so look forward to that. But Lauren has contributed to numerous publications, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, USA Today. He particularly has chaired on the Digital Marketing Council of HSMAI previously, and was recognized actually as one of the top 25 extraordinary minds in sales and marketing, as he currently serves on the board of Americas for HSMAI's international organization. So without further ado, Lauren Gray.
Thank you very much. It was really impressive, and it's like, it sounds cool. It's like top 25. It's like, wow, you're kidding. It was scary to be in the company of everybody. Well, I know I've been taught it is to keep you awake after lunch, which after a wonderful lunch, it's going to be a hard thing to do, so I have to get that out of the way. But there is a caution and a warning. For those who haven't had the pleasure of us talking together, the more I get into these things, the faster I get to talk, and the more passionate I get about it. So Fran keeps track of my time, because I have yet to ring the bell correctly. I keep going over in time. The last our event that we had in Orange County, I think I got the closest of being just around 10 minutes over in my time slot. And that was even going through some slides pretty quick, because there's lots of things to discuss. It's like trying to explain the universe and give 2 examples in like 20 minutes. There's too much to talk about. But I'd like to make some statements to the process to understand where we have to start from to understand how we need to be doing things together. First off, not knowing the complete mix of the room, I know of some GMs being in space and so forth. How many are actual revenue managers that we have? Outstanding. And any marketers? Yay. And general manager, I'm aware of. Anybody else other than one general manager I'm aware of? Anybody else? GM, thank you. And any other positioning that I haven't asked about? Who else is doing something? Sales? Yes? Awesome. Okay, for revenue managers, I have bad news. You and eventually I, as a digital marketer, are going to be out of a job as we exist now. Because in all entities, we've grown up in a silo, we've grown up in a parallel. We've been responsible for those who've been in the industry long enough, we know that we came from a reservation manager position. It turned into revenue management. Before, the owners of hotels walked into the GM's office to know what's going on. They now walk into your office to know what's going on. But, and I'll make an example that I'm going to borrow from the Ideas Corporation, we're not exactly doing it in a forward-thinking way. And that's where the marketing component of the conversation will come in. Because marketing can't exist without revenue management's knowledge and foresight and ability to point in the direction that they need to focus on. By the same token, revenue management can't see forward from what they're looking at from behind. I'll get to that point. First, I would like to make sure that everybody knows that I am but a part of the equation. Our series sponsor, there is a much smarter, much better looking, and infinitely more intelligent person that's going to follow behind me and give you an insight to many things that I am not going to have time for in my portion of this. And that is Victoria. And it's a neat collaboration because we did not talk to each other into the details of our presentations. We share the same end result vision to the process of digital marketing and revenue management coming together. We just don't share the same process, as it were, as to why we will do what we end up doing collaboratively towards the end. And so she'll give her unique perspective in contrast. In other words, I get to go first and she tears down everything I do and then builds up all her good cases and I can't rebuttal it. So it's a good thing I get to start, but it's a bad thing I don't need to finish, so that's all right. All right, so CHRM, for those who are certified, I've modified the terminology to say the M is for marketing, because really in the evolution of what you're going to be responsible for, I used to believe a few years ago that marketers were going to win the conversation between revenue management and marketing. I've certainly gotten smarter to the idea now that actually revenue management has to take the helm. And the reason for this is because of the omnipresence responsibility that a revenue manager has within the infrastructure of your hotel. Revenue management. The ultimate purpose of a revenue manager is revenue. Where digital marketing, the ultimate purpose is the expression of the development of revenue. So it immediately puts them into a secondary role to revenue management. So revenue management actually has to take the lead when it comes to direction. Now, I borrowed this from Ideas, and the reason why I borrowed it from Ideas is because they borrowed it from me. Jane out of Ideas, wonderful woman, we were talking over it, and I said the revenue management was a lot like driving a car, only looking through your rearview mirror, trying to determine where you want to go by seeing where you've been. And they did this cute little animation in their advertising. I took the audio out. But the idea of it is, revenue management is based on a lot of data. That's historical data. Trends, historical demands, historical rates, historical feeder markets, ADRs, occupancies, so forth that are on a backward trend. Now we do have reports and modeling and forecasting for those of you who do use pivot tables and everything else in Excel, or maybe even use Tableau, which we'll ask about and talk about. You may have some projections forward as to what you think this data means, but it's based on the fundamental belief of the data's value from historically being sound. This actually happened. So because this actually happened, we can assume the following things with a degree of confidence. Sound kind of normal what we do with our math that we're dealing with for revenue projections. So, I would like to contest to you, and I'm a movie buff and a sci-fi geek and everything else, I'm going to play a quick portion of a video. Everybody remember the movie The Minority Report? Kind of vaguely, Tom Cruise. The premise was that there was some humans or individuals that had the ability to see the future. And from that, they were able to determine if someone was going to create a crime. And from that, they could determine to stop somebody before that crime was committed. Well, to bring that to the context of our conversation, it's the perfect moment. It's that coalescence of everything being in the right place at the right time. As we often say, right price, right product, right consumer, right time of purchase. We want to be that one point. So just to make the point, I'm going to see if the video will play well for us. I kind of started, it'll run a little long here, but we'll see what happens. Now they're running from the police, obviously. Police. Let's go. And they're in a mall, which we know is dying.
Wait.
And they're trying to escape.
You see the balloon there? Wait. Wait.
What are we waiting for?
Now you think that they are going to be seen any moment. They're in the middle of everything.
Wait. Wait. Wait.
What just happened? Out of the movie's context, out of what we're talking about, what just happened in that video frame? And believe me, this is, I'm going to drag it out of you. I'm going to start reading name badges. So this isn't a quiet conversation. This is an interactive conversation. What happened in the movie that relates to what we're talking about?
Predicted the future.
What's that?
Predicted the future.
Predicted the future, saw what was going to happen and needed to be where they needed to be at the moment they needed to be it to stop what they would want to have not happen to them, which is be discovered. Or as the slide apparently says on the very top, the right moment. We do this every day, or we at least attempt to do this every day. And that is to make sure that our rate strategies, our occupancy yields, our demand to market, our business cycles, our competitive sets, are all looked at in such a critical way that we say that this rate that we're offering with this availability of inventory to the market demand that's coming in is exactly what we need. That's the strategy. Where does marketing fit into that? Anyone want to venture a possible throw out to the idea of where marketing fits into that conversation? Because it seems like revenue management has it covered, right? I mean, you have all that data, historical. You know your historical ADRs, you know your historical occupancies, you know your historical business and market demands, business cycles, competitive sets. You have all this data. So how is this value of marketing coming into play? Sir?
Optimizing underperforming segments.
Yeah, optimizing segments. We'll take the word segment out of that. It is. What else? For those who work with their marketing teams now, or may be responsible for their own marketing, there is some collaboration going already on between the two disciplines. What does marketing do for you? Besides ask for discounts, special offers, and packages. Create demand. Do they create demand or simply augment the demand that's there? Amplify the opportunity? Because as you hear some people say, and I do not prescribe to this, is you cannot create demand. I deny that. I say that you actually can. But first I want to steal it. Then I'll see if I can expand after I've taken somebody else's demand. So, right moment. And let's see if we can make this advance again. Where did I go? Oh, there I am. Always got to find the mouse. Okay. So that's what we're here for. You'll see me jump around on slides. By the way, just so you know, I have a link that I'll provide at the end. This, I know I talk and I go down rabbit holes, so I took the time to make a nice recorded webinar of how I intended the entire package of the presentation to be. So you can watch it at your time and your leisure and take all the notes from it if you have any interest on it at all. And also, that little red thing over there is a camera. And recording it, and it also will be on the link that I give you so you can play back this particular session that you're in. It also shares some of the other sessions from the other rockets of my presentation. You can see how it started with the same deck, but went down different conversations. Because there's so many things that we can bounce into from conversations that it changes from each one. Which, I think before I get too far into my presentation, I want to put a challenge out to you to start. I should have said this earlier. So here's a challenge to you, and especially specifically to the revenue managers, but the GMs and anyone else is included in this. What is your worst current revenue problem? Your worst current revenue problem. Loss of group, soft spot in business cycle, increased inventory to market, whatever it may be. Worst revenue problem. Think of it, form it into a statement, and if anyone wants to volunteer at the end of the presentation, we're going to leave some time, present it. And here's the challenge. We've made the challenge successfully to everywhere we've gone. If I can't solve it collectively with the use of the room within the time that we have for it, or at least point you in the right direction for a solution, you get 3 hours of my time for free. Now, that hopefully is in compensation to other things that you're learning from today's presentations. But the idea is this. There is a great intelligence and awareness in this room already. I'm only going to be trying to direct the conversations. Anyone can participate in that solution process. We're not going to talk about rate strategy. That's not the purpose of our conversations. It would be marketing tools, techniques, revenue integrations, and methodologies. So please keep in mind, and like I said, nobody's kind of knocked us off the top of the hill yet. So the challenge is out for you all to decide whether or not this is the time that it happens. So I put this up. I'm not going to read it to you. I hate people when they read slides. You can read it faster than I can read it to you. But the point of it is, our paradigm has changed, and it's not because of millennials or any categorization of age groups that we want to tell people. It's because our culture has shifted due to the internet, due to technology, that it's no longer what everyone wants, and that is to own a home in suburbia, raise families, whatever it is the American dream is perceived for those people. It's this now, experiences. Now, first it was blamed on the millennials or anybody else that, oh, they don't want to buy anything, or they went through the crash of '08, and because of that, everyone has a bad taste in their mouth about owning property or owning a home or something like this. It's how we're in the most amazing industry right now. And with the technologies that are coming out, we're in the most amazing time to be in this industry right now. We truly can market to an individual. We're going to talk and give some examples of exactly how to do that with digital marketing, with technology. Okay, so this is inverse of everybody that ever does presentations. Everybody that has an iPhone, please take it out. I'd like you to follow the following instructions on that. I do the Android one as well, but it just makes a very cluttery screen. Anybody that's with an Android can look over an iPhone user's shoulder and see this as you go through the process. For the first person that gets to the bottom of the directions and sees what it displays, please raise your hand and tell us what it is that you see. Caveat being, anybody that shut off their location-based marketing or location-based tracking, you won't see any of the data that we're about to refer to. And if I keep blocking your view, let me know. I can probably might look antisocial at the dinner table today, because that's like, they had this sandwich I wanted to eat, and I didn't want to do it at the table because I had a little plate, so I ran off and stood off the side, because this always gets hit. Anyway. Anybody there? All right, please tell me, what do you see?
Map.
Map? What do you see on the map?
Blue dot.
And what are the blue dots telling you?
Where I've been.
Where you've been, and how long you were there, and everything else. Yeah. Anybody not know that stuff was being tracked? Just out of curiosity. I mean, most people do, but I'm just saying, anybody ever not know that or ever actually see that? It's kind of spooky. I mean, and it's not It's not the worst of the worst. We're going to get to the worst of the worst. I always tell people in the presentation, we're going to go start from interesting, usable, and scary. So we're in the interesting part right now. So this is telling you, your phone is telling you, that it knows where you've been, how long you were there. Okay, for everybody that's anything other than a marketer, which is everybody, stop for a second and shed your title. Shed your thoughts on your job. And think, what would I do with that if I were to sell somebody something? Get into the marketer mind. What would you do with that kind of data? Any ideas?
Offer them paid market incentives to come in.
Location-based, yes. That's usually the biggest usage of location-based mobile. Anybody want to venture as to what the current Google number is for mobile use for search versus anything other platform, iPads or anything else, what the average current percentage is right now of mobile use compared to everything else? No, I love what you said. Well, it will be soon enough. Yeah, not yet. Not 80% yet.
64?
Close, 62. 56 is what they say for SERPs, search engine result pages, 62 in general usage. There's an average of 6.5 hours spent on the mobile, 4 of which is spent on what platform? Facebook, which we'll talk about. So, this is a true statement. The internet is mobile. Everything else is the smaller category and getting smaller as we go along. iPads are actually getting smaller faster than laptops. But the world of mobile is the internet. So now this location-based information you're looking at your phone is useful to me because most of the stuff that's being used is near me. The largest growing term, whether you use Siri or type it in, is nearby and near me. And so, obviously with the phone's location, using that kind of data, useful marketing information. So, anyway, this is not meant to be read, but just to impress you with the idea, this is how we categorize our guests. Now, with the phone, the reason why they're back-to-back on this is the phone shows you the individuality of whom you are. I would venture to say that most of you, say versus this particular location or coworkers, that map is not very similar to another person in this room. It's different for each of us. Somever, we in our industry categorize our guests this way. Or as I like to say, when was the last time someone walked up to your front desk and said, "Hi, I'm your Smurf"? They don't, unless they're really small and blue. But we categorize them. Why do we categorize them? What would you think would be a reason why we categorize people like this?
We can market to them differently.
Yes. We can begin to silo them collectively so it's easier for us to identify them. Now, as humans, we do it by nature anyway. We stereotype people, we categorize people mentally by their looks, by their demeanor, their attitude, their voice, everything. Because we have to, our mind being a computer in itself in a fantastical way, is try to understand how to relate to somebody. And the only way it does it is create familiar comparisons to understand that, okay, based on how they look, sound, whatever information I want to use, this is how I see them to know how to interact with them. We do the same business-wise by categorizing them into groups of types of business so we can better market to them. But what happens when you do that? If we took everybody here and put them into one marketing pile, are we being fair to every individual interest? No. There may be some that travel for transient, pure transient, corporate transient, group business, whatever it may be. We have to identify each individual user's experience based on their individuality. The reason why I make this point is the technology that's available now, we can actually do that. Now, we're heavy into the marketing conversation because I want to bring it back to the revenue usage, but these are the marketing things that are going on right now. So, this is how we usually see our engagement with our guests in a business cycle. You've probably seen lots of cute names that we're using for now, the customer journey, you know, the guest funnel. There's all these ways of us describing pretty much a natural thing that usually occurs, and that is, hey, I'm thinking about going somewhere. Discovery, 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 narrow it down, make a purchase. That's our acquisition phase. Okay, before they arrive, we want to re-identify ourselves, maybe augment what they're going to be doing with us. Boom, they're here, we engage with them, we try to get internal capture, so forth and so on, and then boom, they're out the door and they're posted. That's how we see our guests. That's the most unfair way of dialoguing with our guests possible. It's a lot like us in this engagement room right now that I'm identifying that because I'm the speaker, I talk this way, and then I talk to you this way, and it's very, there's no individuality right now. So we shouldn't do it to our guests and just say, oh, this is how we handle everybody. Because some people step in and out of this process in a variety of time cycles But there's data to tell us this, and that's where we're going to start focusing on shifting back to the revenue conversation. Because this part of the program today is about using functional data. Information that you don't know are there, or if it is there, how to use it to be effectively better at revenue management, revenue production. Okay. This is a very simplified version of a timeline. In the world of revenue management, everything past this little gray box is data that you have. The date that they purchased, which identifies the booking window because that's the difference between that and their stay date, the duration of their stay, LOS, length of stay, and the departure date. That's data you have. That's the data in your POS system, PMS systems, that's the CRM systems. That's all there. The part you don't have is this, and that is the research part. What did it take for them to finally get to this point here? Anybody ever hear a term called ZMOT? I never did either. I was a keynote at one place, and I raised my hand, and everyone gasped because it was like, he doesn't know what ZMOT is? I felt like it was like sacrilege. ZMOT is zero moment of transaction. It's Google's phrase. There's almost like a little cult following the ZMOTs, because they're trying to interpret what is it that creates that moment from discovery to decision. That spark that says, click here, do this, I'm ready, I want. And it's this whole study in behavior. What influences all that? As a matter of fact, most of Google's artificial intelligence building is built around this, how does this happen? How do we create that moment so that we can answer the questions, which will also, time giving, we'll do that. We're gonna speed up, sorry. Okay, let me give you some examples. Sorry. Anybody hear the terms custom audience, lookalike audience? We're gonna talk about Facebook now, by the way, sorry. Custom audience, anybody hear about that term before? A little bit? Custom audiences are exceptionally cool and scary at the same time. Facebook knows a lot about its users, okay? To give you a quick math equation to all this, there's 40 of us in this room. The average following of a person on Facebook is 300 people. So 40 people, what are you looking at math-wise? 40 times 300, somebody math quick.
12,000.
Huh?
12,000?
12,000. 12,000 times 300 again.
360,000.
360,000. That's just one friend that you know, compared to just us knowing each other. Facebook says that everybody is 3.1 degrees of separation. Remember the old Kevin Spacey? Kevin Spacey. Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation. He has 3 now. In the world, supposedly. So let's just quickly do math. Even if we were to say 360,000, say half the people that we all know, we share. So let's cut it down back to 150,000. 150,000 people that we know that collectively know. Now, say half of those would actually be interested in what we have to say. So that's 75,000 people. And half of those would actually be willing or capable of acting on what we would want them to do. So it's down to 38,000, say 35,000. So from just this room, in our social engagement on an average level, which I'm sure some of us have higher or lesser in all that 300, that we can effectively reach 35,000 people with a message that not only would they be interested on, but would actually act on. That's marketing that has never been in our world, ever. And that's just on one platform, in one general interest, on one average circumstance. To give you some idea of the power of the platform. So custom audiences, Facebook allows to say, if you give us an email, we'll go see if we know them. So you give your arrivals list. Just take the emails and you give it to Facebook. And Facebook will come back, and depending upon the email, whether it's a business email that may not have been used to create the Facebook account, they will tell you how many people of that list you sent they know. Now, you don't know them by name or individuality. You're an anonymity, that word. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It's still there. You turn into a digital avatar at that point. But everything that Facebook knows about that person from that list that they identify, their preferences, likes, friends, what they click on, what they share, their time duration, what they watch, all the information that's shared or unshared with them and what they're connected to, which we'll talk about in just a second, is now filterable data for advertising. And they're connected to a lot of data sources. Financially, when you apply for loans or not for loans, that data is shared, and anonymously. Medical records, anonymously. I do air quotes only because it's scary that it turns from anonymous to actually particular, depending on other softwares. But in the spirit of what they're trying to do, it's anonymous. You turn it into the digital avatar of all this data. I used to make the joke 4 years ago with the current filtering that Facebook had, that I could advertise to a one-armed Hindu in Amish country looking for Tex-Mex, because I literally made a filter in Facebook for an ad campaign, and I had an audience, as baffling as it sounds. Now, with the data, I can say that that same person that owns a home in New York that is worth at least $3 million, that he's owned for at least 5 years, owns a BMW and a Mercedes-Benz, has 2 daughters, one of which goes to Penn University, the other to Cornell, and has a son that's going into high school. And I still have an audience. That's how much data is available to be used. To give you another example with custom audiences, how many is, from a sales team or a hotel still do blitzes? Go out and do sales, a couple, okay. An alternative to your blitz, walking into an office that says no solicitation with a bag of cookies. Everybody, I would just be a GM, I just love blitzes. Everybody follows the company they work for. So take your top 10 employees in market, and if you want to give them an L&R to their employees that's not negotiated with the company, as in when your workers have to stay with us because of training, but if you want to offer your workers, especially if you have multi-properties elsewhere that you want to share the value proposition, simply target them on Facebook and say, hey, employees of such and such, which will see the ad. We're offering a great deal at such and such for this weekend. Hey, rather than go out of town, come in town, stay with us, have fun, whatever it is, you can identify them by the simple workplace that they are because they follow it. Lots more details of that. So lookalike audiences goes on steroids with this because it takes your custom audience and you then say to Facebook, hey, Facebook, of everybody you found in this custom audience, how many people do you know in the United States that are within 1% exactly the same out of 55,000 points of information? And Facebook will look back and say, well, out of the US, there's 2 million people that are just like the people you just told me about. So let's connect the dots. If I give you a list of guests that have enjoyed your stay at your hotel and sent them up to Facebook and created a custom audience, which in itself is great, but then asked to make a lookalike audience of those same people that are just like them but that have never experienced our product. Now everything about those people is also filterable. I'll give you an example of usability. Not that one. That one's just, it made a lot of money off of it though, but I've got to cut down on some time on some stuff. And again, that's why it's great that we have the presentation you can go back to and watch all these little cute things. But anyway, real world example, real world solution. I had a hotel that lost 62% of its occupancy 2 weeks out from a group that dropped. Now, they had an attrition clause before you ask. Not that anybody was raising their hand real quick, but we weren't going to exercise because they were a repeat group, and it was a tragedy that caused the cancellation. So we're just going to let them loose, knowing that they'd be back the following year. Still left a 62% hole in occupancy 2 weeks out. All the revenue managers in the room, what would you do? You can't say that you've never had this happen. What would you do? Oh, admit it, drop rate. You would hope that there's still some residual demand to market and that you would be able to capture it by being aggressive on your rate and irritate every comp set person that's in there your rate because you dropped it below everybody else and what have you. What happens to the people that are on the books with you, the other 38%? They usually discover the rate, put money back on the table, you lose them too. Any other options? Because believe me, we've had some creative ones pop up. Anybody else have another idea what they would do? Post-launch. Call marketing. Dun, 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 dun. Red cape and all. All right, so what we did, we made custom audiences. We took everybody that was on the list that was already staying for the time that we lost, and we made a custom audience out of it. Then we took everybody that was in 150 miles. Why would we do that? Dry market, 2.5 hours. It's 2 weeks out, and flight windows usually, the lowest one is usually 17 days, unless you're in a hub. And even then, it's hard to get people to fly into a hub. Less than 21 days. So we went over and figured 150 miles, 2.5 hour drive market. They would be interested in coming for whatever we're about to do. And anybody that stayed the same time last year, because hey, they came that time last year, maybe they have another reason or the same reason to come back this year. And they just don't remember us. Remember, mental fatigue. We don't see it in front of us, we don't do something about it. So we put all 3 of them together, but we took the one of the people on the books, and we called it a negative list, meaning what we were about to do, they weren't going to see. And we sent out an ad that offered the group rate, which wasn't irritating anybody in the world. It was really trying to recapture what we had already lost. Okay? And we sent it out to those people as an ad on Facebook. Sold out. Less than 2 weeks. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. It did in this case. That's why it's an example in the presentation. But it does work. But why did it work? Suggestion? Why did it work? I mean, up until 2 minutes ago, the only option we had was to lower our rate. Why did this work? Besides marketing coming in with the Rick Cave. Right product, right time, right person. Stood behind the balloons at just the right moment. Because you were giving something to someone that had the highest interest in it. Just doing quick math equations, you spend $100 and you make $1,000 for it. What's the return on that? 10 to 1. If I spend $100 and made $10,000, what's the return on that? A lot more, let's just say that. Math is not clicking for me today. If I spent the same amount of money to make more money, that's a happier thought, right? What you're doing is amplifying conversion. If I go from a 2.5% conversion to a 3.5% conversion on an ad campaign, did I just increase it by 1%? No. It's exponential every 10th. Because every 10th adds to a 10th, that adds to the 10th, that adds to the 10th. It expands it exponentially. But I spent the same amount of money. What we're doing by amplifying and focusing audiences is determining the best opportunity for expansion of conversion. And I do have to speed up because I will run out of time. Okay. This is a couple more examples to give you some sense of the value proposition. 30 minutes? I like the touchdown thing. All right, we're halfway into this, and I want to do this up in 15 minutes, and I have an hour's worth of slides left. So, and that's on a good day. I was speaking at Focus. I had the pleasure of speaking at Focus about a few years back, and when I worked for a hotel ownership group. And rather than fight the traffic, because I lived in Florida at the time, I thought, hey, I'm going to stay at the hotel where the Focus conference is at, until I found out it was a $499 rate. So then I knew we had a hotel up the road, a Marriott. And I said, hey, you guys already sold out for the conference? And they said, what conference? I said, you do know about reader boards, right? You should check that out. Anyway, no. They were in the 60s somewhere, percentile. And no, they didn't know about the conference. I said, so, and I asked for the best available at the bar rate. And I said, well, just what's rack? Rack was $100 less. Rack was $100 less than what they were getting for the conference down the road. So I made that ad, and I put it on Facebook. But what I did was I focused it on anybody that was following Focusrite, and anybody that was following the sponsors of Focusrite. And I put the ad up. Well, not only did they sell out for 7 days, they also got a few extra thousand people that wanted to follow the hotel. So we thought, wow, that's great. We made lightning strike, you know, that moment thing. Every 2 years it came back to the hotel, it was like pushing a red button. Anytime we wanted business, we just had to isolate that group, identify what we wanted to offer them, and we got business from them. Because you were putting the right product in front of the right person at the right time. This example, for an F&B perspective. So this restaurant was not in, but adjacent to the hotel that was in the market for it. And it just went through a recent $35 million renovation, had a 30-year history in market, was on the beach, stunningly beautiful, live music at night, and their Friday nights were going down. I used to own restaurants, and this is old school marketing. I always knew that if I wanted a good happy hour, I got in the young single women. Because the young single guys would follow wherever the young single women were. Well, this restaurant happened to be in a market that there was 71 direct competitors within walking distance. It was a high-density, small-town downtown. And the currency of the realm was parking. If you find a parking spot, you have to play all night. So we said, hey, all females, 24 to 34, interesting 8-day range, that say they're single, that like live music, within a 5-mile radius, because you can do this kind of stuff on Facebook. At 5 p.m. I posted, show this post to our valet and you will get free parking. Now our parking lot had 150 parking spots. At 5:45 we had to take the ad down because we didn't have any more parking spots. All the guys found where all the girls were. So at 9:45, 9:45 we did, 9:45 we had to shut it off. 9 o'clock we didn't have any parking spots offered, so we offered free drinks. Got it even a little tighter. Nobody left because that was having so much fun. We went there for the right reason. Guys were trying to find the girls were there, the guys were there, guys were buying girls drinks. They stayed. And we thought, again, lightning, right moment, right time. Anytime we wanted to do this, we could capture any sort of demand from any of our competitors in market by simply identifying what it was that made them go to our competitor and offered the same with a better value to what we were doing. By just isolating. Now, to give you another example of that radius thing, for anybody that would like to try this, that's looking at in-market or what have you, you're able to place an address in Facebook ads and create a radius from this. Let's say within X number of miles. And then Facebook would say, well, what data do you want in the sense of this radius? People that live within it, live within 99 miles of it, or live beyond 99 miles. Well, guess what as hoteliers we would like? Beyond 99 miles, because they're travelers. So if you were to say pick a hotel that you're competing with and put that radius around them and indicate that you had some value proposition that was different than that hotel, you're able to actually talk to that audience. What's better yet is that you can create custom audiences from people coming to your website from answering that ad and create an audience from the people that are interested in what you had to say and reuse it for another time. Anyway, just saying. All right. Daily and long-term strategies. Very quickly, we're going to fly through this. This is attribution modeling. Now, I don't know whether you've heard the buzzwords or whatever have you, but Google a few years back took away the usage of us using keywords for organic, where we would optimize our content on a website based on the words that people would use to discover it. So we tried to not game the system, but modify our value proposition to people looking for our content. And instead they gave us attribution strings. Attribution strings simply say that they went from here to here to here and did this conversion. And they were nice enough to rank it in the highest productive one to the least productive one from your website. What's good about the technology we have in the world today is that everything that happens on your social network is measurable and trackable. Everything that happens on your organic page, your Google, your website is usable and trackable. Caveat being brand sites, it's a little hard to get data for. The other is your paid campaigns, also usable and trackable. Well, if you put all of that together, you can optimize and create better yield by simply tweaking what it is each of those components are doing in that attribution string to go from a 2.5 conversion to a 3.5 conversion for not spending more money, but being smart about where you're driving the traffic. There's more to talk about. I suggest you listen to the webinar if you're interested in this stuff, because I do want to get to the ending part of what we want to do, and I always get stuck in some places, and this is where I usually get stuck. So I'll let you read that later. But there's a caveat that I want to warn people about. After the Civil War in the South, there was this term that came out of people that came into town and were selling a variety of things. And they were made up things. They're called carpetbaggers. And they promised a lot, delivered very little, and left town before you figured that out. There are carpetbaggers in our industry. There are services and softwares that are saying, we can help you with direct booking, because that's the buzz, right? Yeah, I want direct booking. I want to get off everybody else's channel. I want direct booking. And they say, let us put this on your website, and we'll help you with that conversion process, just like we're talking about. We'll go from 2.5 to 3.5. You're going to make more money because we're giving you the better reasons to book with you than with somebody else. Problem is, to the uninformed, they hijack your website. How they do this is innocuous. It's in the fine print of their conversation, but pretty much what they do is they give you conditions like this. We'll only show such and such if your mouse moves close to where you're going to close the page. You're thinking, oh, this is a great idea. If you're ready to leave my website, this thing pops up and it's a slider or pop-up or whatever, and they'll stay in the book. What actually happens is as soon as their system kicks in, your system stops and it resets the session. So where maybe your paid campaign created the traffic, or your organic campaign created the traffic, or even your search engine results or whatever, instead it stops it and it puts itself as the next reason why they're there. And then they charge you the commission or the fee or whatever it is that's in your terminology that you've put in relationship with them. It's a fine-tuning. For those who have agencies to work with, I strongly suggest that you talk with them about what's on your website, for those who have standalone or vanity sites for branding, and see what's engaged with your website, and get critical about where and how these softwares work. Because you're giving them the keys to your house saying, I hope you take care of it, because they have control over how they account for the revenues your site's developing. So, just a caution word. And to give you a sense of that, and this is not in detriment to this hotel, every hotel does this, they have a little plugin for Chrome. Chrome has great plugins, by the way. This plugin will tell you all the tracking that is connected to that website. 38 things are tracking data off of the website for here. And that's the branded website. And I bet you, from the perspective of this hotel, it gets very little data from these 38 people. It probably gets data from a couple of them, but most of them, because everybody's hands in the pot of controlling a website like this, adds their own data to this, their own tracking to this. Everything you're doing advertising-wise, statistic-wise, adds a tracking code. Okay? So just to give you a sense, no one's immune to this stuff. Everybody has this problem. And it makes it easier because there are now programs like from Google called Google Tag Manager, where all this stuff gets shoved into one little drum. So all you see is one code on the site, but there's like 38 things that come up behind it. That's what it was built for. All right. Where are we? Oh yeah, real quick. So, to show you the value of social and organic, Google has a really great tracking process that if you set up your goal sets on your website correctly, that it'll tell you each page's value contribution for the business that was developed by your website. In this case, this was a Halloween post on Facebook. As a note that you can write down, anytime you put anything on any other platform, especially social, make sure you built the content on your website that it points to. Don't rely upon just the post or just what you're saying or the link to the booking engine. Nobody buys on first blush. Don't hit the book now button. That's not social. Social is about engagement and storytelling, which we don't have time for today. But it's about building the interest and bringing it to the point where it's at the highest level of interest, at the highest level of conversion to amplify all your channels of distribution. Whole nother discussion. You can go to the live show. We do a live show every Friday for HSMAI. It's video one. It's kind of fun. It's like a little Brady Bunch talking heads. Every Friday, 10:30 Central. We have about 1,600 people, 22 countries that are joining us now. And we have all these guest speakers. We have somebody coming in from Sojourn, I think, this Friday. Kat, she's brilliant. She was on the Digital Marketing Council presentation and stuff. And she's a lot of fun. But we have all these great conversations. And this is where we kind of talk about this stuff so you can really kind of hear how a lot of industry professionals are understanding how all this stuff is kind of working. And the details are on the web link when you get there if you're interested. So anyway, this post happened on Facebook, then it went flat. This is a whole year. But you see it goes dee, 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 in the organic, and then it keeps dribbling along. That's because Google indexed it, and it started getting used. This was a Halloween post of all things, just a Halloween thing that they were doing, and they made a Halloween page on their website. Out of the entire year after that post, you think being just Halloween, it only happened the value at that one time and then disappeared. Generated almost $40,000 more revenue over the course of the year because it was used by Google for a variety of things that drove traffic to the website that eventually created revenue for the hotel. Innocuous as it was, so things last a lot longer than just the single impression that you created for it. Okay. Okay, cool stuff. Wow, we're gonna really not get to the real fun stuff. Tableau. So, I mentioned to you that everything's trackable on your website. Everything is trackable on your website, including those little date windows. You know, the ones where you say, hey, what date I'm interested in coming and arriving and going? For the revenue managers, how cool would it be if you knew somebody came from Philadelphia, looked at your website for dates March 3rd through 5th, 60 days out? Well, then you might have an idea of their demand, right? You might have a sense of, oh, there's a lot of people coming from Philadelphia or interested from Philadelphia that want to stay March 3rd through 7th. So you can track it. And you can tell, this is just a Tableau example. But for revenue management, just to give you a sense of all this, over here, I created a slider for weeks of the year. In that weeks of the year, it showed me the markets that were interested in the dates that I chose. So let's ask a normal revenue management question. I need business the 3rd week of March. Okay, slide the slider over, 3rd week of March. All of a sudden, these little balloons show up on capacity and number of days previous that people were interested in those dates from that geographic source. Why is this important? Now we're talking back to marketing. Because then marketers, instead of going, shotgun United States, let's hope somebody's interested, no. How much business do I want from Chicago 81 days out when I now have rate resistance history that people from Chicago have a rate resistance of such and such compared to what I'm wanting? So how much of that base business, or this is prime business that I want from that particular market, hey, marketing team, go fetch me business out of Chicago at the time that they're interested in what we're offering. Now all of a sudden you're beginning to target your strategies for revenue management. What rate do you want? How much of it do you want? When do you want it? Next is, who's contributing to your revenue? This was a quick build, same weekly slider. It was based on revenue contribution. That's how this category was created. 80% of your revenue would show up usually on the top 20 scale. Total revenue, occupancy, ADR, average cost per service. We'll get to that point in just a second. This was showing me the sources of revenue based on the date of interest that I had for driving business. So let's go back to the 3rd week of March. So the 3rd week of March, these are my market sources. This is where it gets valuable because this is how I got the business. If I were to select a single place, this is in general for all of them, but if I were to select one of the single places, it would tell me the separation of how we got business from there, how they reached out to us, whether it was paid, or organic, or whatever. All of these have costs. So now, just to bring the extension conversation a little bit farther, wonder if you could forecast, not based on historical ADRs, historical occupancies, trends, and so forth, but the fact that I know that if I were to use paid placement in Boston, because I want their ADR, that our average conversion is 2.5%. My CPC cost per click, which is mean when they hit the ad, is $1. So if I spend X dollars, I get X return, total revenue and occupancy. I already know my length of stay. You're a revenue manager, you know that already. And the date that I'm wanting it, the third week of March. You've now forecasted with marketing data, not revenue data, just on its own. 5 minutes? All right. 15, no, it's 50, that's 15, right? Okay, keep forgetting the singles. All right, we'll go real quick. Okay, so this is a freebie one. Google has a thing called Fusion. What this is an example of, we had an upscale resort, was getting slumped. So we said, hey, it's a really upscale resort. Where do we get business historically? So we took all their data, and we ripped all the zip codes out. We threw it in the chart and said, what zip codes did we get business from? Now, it's just a static image, but if we were to have the animated one, you could zoom right down to the zip code. Now, this is using data. You can go into the Census Bureau and find out the income levels of zip codes. Kind of a thing to do. So we would then pick, we knew there was a propensity. You had to be rich to stay in this place. So income was the modifier to the revenue generator. So we created an axis, and we did it in a quadrant. So, come on, where'd it go? There it is. All right, so we put the zip codes that quantified under the minimum income level necessary up to the maximum, whatever they represented, and the revenue they generated. Upper right, good. They generated revenue and they had the income propensity to do it. Lower right meant that they had the income propensity, but they weren't generating as much revenue. Now this is historical zip codes. These aren't new zip codes or places we're looking to do business. This is zip codes that we were getting business from already that weren't producing as much. Remember, we're in that slump. Isolated the zip code, sent them snail mail. Hey, don't forget us. Not a discount, not an offer, not a package, just a hey, don't forget us. Because we do forget things. Unless it's in front of us the whole time, it's passive. We look for the next new thing. 30% lift in less than 30 days. Why? Because we isolated out whom we think would be most interested and created the conversion value. Right place, right moment, right offer. This is data that you all see on a regular basis. If you're to pull your arrivals list, and this is no offense to third parties that are in the room, you ghost your emails with guest.booking.com, guest.whatever, okay? You do this because it's your guest, okay? You're sending us business, so we don't have the email of the person that bought business from you. We have an email that confirms our system to be able to book it for you. So these emails are not very useful for doing some email campaigns or the custom audiences we talked about or anything like that. But look at the kind of data sources that are on an innocuous report like this. We have confirmation numbers, which is even blurry for me, and I'm standing right here. Confirmation numbers, guest full name, gibberish emails, but there are some real emails in there, so you want to take them out anyway. Creation date, arrival date, departure date, rate code. Don't worry about that part. What can you do with some of that stuff? Thinking about things that we just talked about. I can't do all the talking. I swear, well, actually I probably could. Sorry, no, skip that. I can do all the talking. What can you do with some of that data? Come on.
Direct marketing.
Direct marketing. How so? I mean, I'm not being challenging. I'm actually just thinking, how can you do that?
Email them something.
For those that you have the real emails for, yes. Those who have the wonderful innocuous guest.booking.com, you can't touch them. It's put there for a reason that you can't go through them because it has to go through booking.com. Look at the categories. Confirmation number. What is your system? If your front desk has an issue with a guest and they ask, what's my confirmation number? And you tap the confirmation into your PMS system. What pulls up? Their entire data. Everything's there. Correlate that too, and I know you all are good with pivot tables in Excel because gosh knows everybody has to be good at pivot tables in Excel. You can create pivot tables of all this arrival date versus promo code that was used for booking. So if you can correlate date of arrival and the promo code, just in those two categories alone, you knew what was the demand driver for that market for those periods for that promotion. Right there. Just 2 columns of data. If you then correlate it with confirmation number and segment out where the source of that business is by zip code or any other information you have about that person that's been on file from being a previous guest or not, you now have feeder market business. This is just general data. This is the stuff that we throw away in the bin or shred every day. Or even don't even pull it up in a report to look at because it's mundanely unuseful for everything that you're doing currently. But this data exists, and it's usable data. We won't have a chance to play it, but there's a, you're familiar with Watson, IBM's thing? Scary thing, a friend of mine actually works with IBM, and I said, so what's it like to program Watson? He says, we don't program it, we teach it. It learns from what we give it. because it learns this process of structured and unstructured data. And Victoria's doing a wonderful job of explaining what unstructured data looks like in the realm of digital marketing. So I'm not going to get too much into deep with that. But real quickly, 4 statements I like to make before we get to the last 5 minutes of challenging you. Actually, we might have to do the last 5 minutes and just real quick. These 4 statements. Websites will be a thing of the past. First point, dynamic websites are what's going to be built, which means we know so much about each individual user experience from things like I showed you on your phone, that by the time you go to a website, a hotel website like Hilton, who's building this in beta, it's not a website, it's a portal. It knows why you're there. So all of a sudden, if I'm a business traveler and I go to a Hilton site because I'm interested in potentially staying there, there's images of business travel, there's content about business travel, shuttles, Wi-Fi, and packages about travel that are due to corporate. So that's dynamic. Search box will go away. We talk to everything, Siri, everything. We are no longer just asking for options, we're asking for an answer. Google's new mission statement, to be the ultimate assistant. Not let's give you 5 choices or a search engine page result, but if you ask a question, Google wants to be able to answer it correctly with just one answer. If you don't have what you need, content or strategy, you may not be that one answer. You won't be in a position for Google to pull up as a result to that person. We're going to go blindingly through this. Skip all that. We'll skip all that. But again, I hate to have to skip all that because it's a lot of fun stuff. But, and we're going to skip that. We're going to talk about meta search real quick, just as a quick statement. Meta search is not just about being on the large-scale TripAdvisors and so forth. It's about dynamic data pools. It's about being able to correlate real-time data from your inventory with real-time rates to people real-time looking for it. Let me pop over to a quick example. This. Facebook DAT. Anybody hear of DAT yet? Dynamic ads for travel? Remember all the stuff we just talked about Facebook, what it knows about you and how it can tailor? We didn't even talk about programmatic or retargeting. We didn't even get into some of that detail. This is dynamic advertisement. All of these features are generated for your individual benefit based on what it is known about you on Facebook. You ever click on an ad that says starting at 109, you click on it, you can never find that 109 right to save your soul? What happens? You don't buy it. You get pissed off and you leave. That 109 rate in a dynamic ad is a real rate for the dates that it already knows you're potentially interested in, with inventory that's really available, with the hotel you're most interested in, based on your membership or non-membership with them, with the interest of type of picture, whether you're business travel, family travel, static interest, whatever. All of this gets made for your individual benefit in Facebook DAT programs. And this isn't future stuff. This is running right now. There are hotels that are using this right now. You can use it right now. It's available. I had the privilege of sitting in a room with engineers from Shanghai when I was there, and Facebook. It was really weird because they're really super smart. They're going back and forth. It was really just making them understand what they could build versus what they needed. But that's part of it. All right, so we gotta skip all that. That's Lucy. You'll see that. All that. Okay, we'll get to the end. All right, so live. I love to give you examples. I'll be happy to talk afterwards and so forth. I just want to get to the challenge. I'm going to leave that up for right now. Anybody have an early problem? Come on, somebody's got to have a problem. You can't have perfect ADR. You're not 100% occupancy. You're not full 365, so there's a problem. Where's the gap? What's happening? It's something that's an issue. Do you get to ask any question of it? It's a sincere and honest open challenge. I will not hide back behind other than talking about rate strategies, but...
I want to know how much business is originating from Meta.
From Meta?
Starting from Kayak, starting from Chicago.
Your number one competitor in market is TripAdvisor, followed by Google Hotel Finder. Kayak is losing ground, Trivago is growing, and Skyscanner is growing. The reason being is that they have a lower cost per acquisition than the larger players. TripAdvisor's meta search platform is horrendously nasty on purpose, because unlike Google, where if you were to bid $4, they have it that if your next competitor was at $3, you only had to pay $3.01. In TripAdvisor, you had to pay $4. So they get a little extra cash flow. And they give you crappy reporting, and it takes you 24 hours to shut it off. So you gotta know where you're gonna steer well before it ends up happening. Kayak is good, but it's losing market share. Trivago also growing, and Skyscanner, because they just recently added hotels in, now 8 months ago, and they just got bought by Ctrip. Big question, what China's gonna do with it? Are they gonna go outside the Chinese market, or are they gonna bring it into the Chinese market? Either way, they win. So right now, and meta search contribution in general runs between 4 and 7% on average industry-wise. If you're a full luxury resort, it's down to 3%. If you're a limited sea first property, it can be as high as 9%. And if you want to have a calculator to know how much it would make you in revenue. On that page is a link that I made a calculator for Derbysoft, who's a metasearch provider, that will tell you exactly what your revenue potential is based on exactly your hotel type, capacity of size, and all the other information it asks you to provide first. So there's an actual calculator I made. Thank you for the question, because I actually have a calculator for it. What else? Told you this is fun. Come on, there's gonna be another problem. You're smiling, but you're not saying. I can't be that intimidating. I'm around me, whitey thing, shirt thing. Sweating. Yes?
Maybe a front desk team that doesn't understand the importance of setting strategies together.
A front desk team that doesn't understand the importance of setting strategies. What kind of? Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That a front desk team that doesn't understand the importance of setting strategies together.
To create like an end revenue goal.
End revenue goal. Okay. So in your world, the revenue manager isn't the leader of the conversation. Your front desk is more the collaborative entity.
They talk with the guests. They interact with them, on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, here I'll answer that. That's it.
Hello?
Yep.
The front desk team, like they actually interact with the guests on a day-to-day basis. A revenue manager who may be outsourcing, or maybe an outsourcing revenue manager does not see the front desk.
Oh, you're talking about remote revenue management. Okay.
Maybe,
okay.
you know.
Okay. Your front desk team, in addition to comically being the one that always says, yes, I should make that extra room even though we don't have it. You know that the joke that you read about how front desk is omnipotent on everything because they have to be? Because they literally are the vanguard, the point of everything? The most valuable part your front desk can actually contribute is awareness of the type of clientele that's coming into your hotel. Because out of anybody that's in your organization, they're the ones that see it every day, as you say. I used to, when I was GM, I would give a rate disparity list. I would go out to my front desk. This was down in Florida Keys, where walk-ins were half my business. For some miraculous reason, people thought by driving into the Keys, there was an infinite amount of unconstrained inventory, and that they could come down and just stay wherever they wanted to and not pay a lot of money for it. Boy, were they wrong. What we would do is we would go over and give a rate strategy as to what kind of inventory we wanted to come in the door then. And I said, look, you can give, here's the lowest rate, but you can only have X number of those. Here's the highest rate, and this is what we'd like to give, but anywhere in between. As soon as you get rid of those lower end ones, you can't go that low and you have to go to the next one. And nobody should walk out your front door, because that means you're not good at this. And that was a mental process of them understanding that there was rate variance as to what they could do, but not necessarily being dictated to that they only could do what they were told. And so to answer potentially what you're asking is, your front desk has to become aware of the latitude of opportunity that exists by coming into the front desk, but more importantly, aware of who's standing in front of them, whether it's corporate, individual, transient, group, whatever it is. It's okay that OTA drives your business. You want them to. That's why you pay them money or you give them money. Either way. But it's shame on you for doing it the second time with them. Because you should be able to cultivate a relationship through the OTA that drove it to you to redefine your relationship with your guests so they come back via you the second time. So your front desk is your key element to that process. And this is it. Damn it. I mean, darn it.
You'll be around. You'll be around.
Oh yeah, and yeah, just love to talk about all the stuff we didn't get to and all the other fun stuff. That link there, like I said, has, I also do a little 360 video, you'll see me running around with it, we didn't get to talk about it too. But the recording is there, and also the presentation and slide deck and everything in its entirety, so you can just see all the stuff we missed. But it's all there as well. So with that, I'm done. Wait, I'm going to flip you over to your presentation. Thank you very much for your time and questions and interest. Thank you very much. And then we're going to shut this up real quick. Sorry.
Lauren?
Yep.
Do you have her presentation?
Yeah. I have an older presentation. I purposely sabotaged it so I look smarter. You'll see why. She kicks my butt. She really is. We were driving down here and we were talking in the car. I ended up just starting to get quiet because everything I came up with, she had a better answer. Sorry, I'm doing this very slowly in front of you. Come on. Oh, don't do this to me now. Here, there it is. Orange County tainted version. That's the one I want, right? Is this? Yeah, this is yours. Yep, we're good. And there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. Some really powerful points there, and appreciate you sharing your insight on all of that. That was really great. Our next speaker, I'd like to introduce Victoria Edwards. She's our the president and CEO of Profit Cloud. Profit Cloud is a cloud-based software application that combines demand creation, demand capture and demand management data to provide hotels with significant incremental profit. Ms. Edwards has had an illustrious career for 25 years in travel, tourism, hospitality, spanning over that time with considerable experience in both rooms and the food and beverage side of the business. She's also the co-founder and co-owner of Buckheister Management, and she will be discussing revenue management in response to digital marketing with us. So I'd like to introduce everyone to Victoria Edwards.
Thank you very much, Travis.
She found out I didn't with the remote.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that needs to have the little clicker. So, well, that's a hard act to follow, huh? Lots of information from geocode optimization to look-alike campaigns and location marketing and so on. There's obviously a plethora of, where is the little guy? Is this it?
Oh, yeah, the silvery thing? Yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna like this, I can tell. All right, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. So there's a plethora of data out there and tools available and so on, which is pretty exciting from a revenue management perspective, right? You've got tons and tons of data. Maybe I should back that up a bit. There's good news and there's bad news, right? You have tons and tons of data. That's the good news. The bad news is you have tons of data to analyze. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the convergence of marketing and revenue management from a little bit of a different perspective, hopefully to allow you to better understand where this conversion is going between the demand creation and the demand management function, and also to illustrate a really, really powerful new correlation between reputation management, sentiment, pricing, and consumer buying behavior. And then I'm going to provide just a few examples of how we feel revenue management will need to evolve over the next few years in what we would term probably the near future, which is now and just beyond, in the face of both marketing and technology innovation. So I'm going to back up a little bit. This is a revenue management business process example. And this is something we've called Rev Roadmap, and we came up with several years ago. It's still pertinent, and I wanted to take you through it because the revenue management business process will still include these variables. What you measure, what you look at, where you get the data, that will change over the next several months to several years. But you will always start off with product alignment, right? And when we talk about product alignment, what we're really talking about is, do we know what our product is going to look like and who we are actually going to market it to? If we have an existing hotel, is the value proposition aligned between one product type and another? We move on to competitive benchmarking, then strategic pricing, forecasting, of course, and all the way through to distribution. Now, the idea is that this is an iterative cycle, and at each point, there are several steps that you take part in. Some of the steps involve marketing, some involve sales, but ultimately they all have a revenue management impact. The idea here is, if you don't know who your competitive set is, can you realistically price in the marketplace, right? Seems kind of logical. If you don't know what your demand is in the marketplace, segmented demand, can you realistically put together a distribution strategy? So this iterative process is a really kind of easy step-by-step business process to think logically through how we deal with revenue management or how we have dealt with revenue management in the past. And something that Lauren and I do agree on, sort of, we're getting closer to a consensus, is this functional shift or overlap between what we call sort of the demand equation. So we know you have demand creation, right? That's sort of the purview of the marketing people. You have demand capture, which is much more of a sales-related function. And then you have the demand management. I'm going to change that to demand management / profit optimization, because I know that's one of the things we need to get rid of in revenue management. And it used to be, I don't know how most of you look significantly younger than I, but back in the good old days, you had all of these different areas in sort of functional silos. They didn't talk to one another. There wasn't a team effort with regard to revenue optimization and obviously profit optimization. But that has gotten significantly better in the last 5 or 6 years. When we're talking about that, and I know there's a lot of revenue managers in the room, but are there salespeople here? Anyone a salesperson? And do you hold your meetings, revenue management meetings, include marketing and include? Occasionally, okay, well that's better than never. But we're getting a lot better at doing this, making sure that marketing has an input as well as sales and other areas within. But this is where I think we're heading, okay? So the first process that we showed you, still relevant, even though, as I said, metrics change and so on. The second sort of conversion between that demand creation, demand management element, still valid. But I think that this is what we're really going to come up against. The new synergy is going to be all about guest analytics, and Lauren talked extensively about looking basically at market segments of one and knowing personal preferences of guests. So in that, we would really take a incredibly granular approach to product preference for an individual. Booking trends in terms of days before arrival, DBA windows, historic price paid and total spend per stay, right? That's just a few examples of some of the things that will be sprinkled into that guest analytics. In addition to that, we'll have predictive marketing. Now, some of the revenue managers may be saying, isn't that an oxymoron, predictive marketing? But you can tell from everything that Lauren said that we're getting so good at this information and analyzing the amount of data that we have that some of these marketing efforts are like surgical strikes. I mean, they're very, very precise, and the data that it yields is incredibly helpful data. So we'll look at things like maximizing online acquisition, streamlining highly targeted offerings to individuals again, sort of that concept of markets of one. We'll also be more involved in this overlap of consumer-generated content and measuring structured data and unstructured data. So does everyone know essentially the difference between structured and unstructured data? Anyone know the difference? Well, structured data is what we traditionally look at as revenue managers. We're dealing with spreadsheets, pivot tables, forecasts, all of those sort of rows and columns that we can analyze. Very structured, very easy to do a data analysis on from an automated perspective. When we're looking at unstructured data, we're talking about images, review sentiment, photos, YouTube videos, and that is getting more and more important. As a matter of fact, apparently 70% of all purchase decisions now are based on unstructured data. I was talking to a colleague at TravelClick recently, and they are very much now getting into the business of making these hero banner pages on your landing page that include a really, really sort of experiential take on the experience at the hotel. And they say if you have one of those on your landing page, you can actually, they're measuring it, and so far they've come up with a measurement of a 22% increase in conversions just by having that unstructured data on your landing page. So this business of unstructured data is becoming really, really important. And then what do we look at when we say, okay, well, what does revenue management do from that point on? We can analyze the impact of individual preferences on total guest spend. That'll be coming very soon. Bonnie talked about this before, analyzing value indexes. I'm going to give you a real life example from one of my clients where we looked at value indexes against their index balance, so the variance between their ADR and their occupancy index. And we'll be comparing things like net RevPAR of various marketing campaigns. So now this is going to be the new optimal demand sort of science, if you will. It's the overlap of all of these different areas. As I said, not to panic too much because some things will remain the same. But the paradigm shift means that we'll just be looking at things differently. We're still going to have to forecast to some degree, but will the emphasis on forecasting be as much? You look at the traditional way of forecasting, whether you do it manually or whether you have an RMS. Traditionally, you're looking at demand forecast by segment and by day of week. Forecasts in the future probably will include or be more heavily weighted towards marketing campaign capture, that whole idea of predictive marketing. Pricing. We currently price by rate shoppers. There's probably not a single person in the room that doesn't have a rate shopping tool, right? Even if you're using some of the tools available on Expedia or the tools available, free tools that Booking.com mentioned earlier, you have access to rate shopping information with regard to your competitive set. Where we see that moving is a fluid pricing by a fluctuating value index and by individual product preference. So it'll be very, very, very granular and very dynamic. Segments, we've always used segments in the past for lead time to booking and for pain threshold, right? We know what the guest needs and we know whether they're retail demand or discount demand, what's their rate threshold that they're willing to accept. That, I think you're gonna see more and more that the transient segment will sort of disappear. We've all seen it with our OTAs, right? Now you've got probably, how many in the room actually have OTAs as a segment as opposed to a source of business? So probably about half, which is an interesting division here, right? It used to be, 10 years ago, we would have had OTAs predominantly set up as a source of business. Now we're shifting to, well, it's not really a source of business, it's kind of a segment on its own. It behaves in a certain way, it has a certain booking window, it has a certain threshold with regard to price. So I think that we're going to see segmentation disappear a little bit in terms of looking at it that way, but we're going to be basing it again on personal preference and the value that somebody ascribes to a specific experience at the hotel. And obviously that can be a corporate hotel as well as a resort. And finally, and this is going to come into play in the next couple of slides, service recovery has always been a part of operations, right? We'd have an issue, a guest would complain, the manager on duty, the general manager, whomever would respond, apologize, maybe comp them a drink or whatever the situation was, but it was really operationally driven. Service recovery now is going to be a measurable determinant of purchase conversion. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that in just a minute. Here's where I think things are going in terms of this whole confluence of data. What we'll probably end up with down the road, and I know most of you probably don't, some of you may not even have RMSs. Does anyone in this room have an RMS? That there are, okay, 1, 2, 3 people with RMSs. But everyone in the room has a central reservation system, right? And a property management system. More and more revenue management software solutions, the adoption rate, I don't know, Bonnie, 10 years ago, was about 3% worldwide. The adoption rate now for revenue management software solutions is more like about 15 to 20%. And that the velocity of that adoption rate has really started to pick up. But we're also going to be looking at our guest experience management software, or CRMs. We'll also factor into this data that comes from sentiment and social metrics. This will have a huge sort of data reservoir, is what I'm calling it for lack of a better term, where all of that stuff will be dumped into this big reservoir or data lake. And then, with the combination of structured and unstructured data, it will push out recommendations or have an output to a total revenue management system or recommendation. So, where do we go from here, right? How are we going to act on the data that we currently have available and some of the things that may soon come into play? I'm going to take you through a study that was done by Kelly McGuire and Brevney Noon in conjunction with the University of Pennsylvania. This was done, I think, about a year ago. By the way, this information is coming from Kelly McGuire's book, Pricing in a Social World, which is absolutely a fascinating read. You can just read a chapter at a time, and it is highly digestible and an absolute wealth of information. But what we want to look at is the impact of reviews on purchase decisions. Bonnie alluded earlier today about the study that was done by Cornell, Travelocity, Star, and Review Pro, and how you could actually increase your conversion rates by 13% and your ADR by as much as 8 without eroding any market share, just by improving 10%, or was it 1 point? 1 point?
It varies, but improvement in the overall review.
Right. But we're going to actually talk about purchase decision. So before that reservation is actually made. And we want to focus on 2 key variables, sentiment and value score. Because this is the true shift towards consumer-generated pricing. We used to all say, oh, well, you know, are you more of a competitive-based pricer, or you really paying attention to the consumer and what the marketplace is telling you? And we'd say, oh, yes, we listen to what the marketplace is telling us, but we weren't actually taking any analytics. We really, for the most part, were following our rate shoppers and figuring out what our competitive set was doing. And of course, the problem with that is the old adage that you're only as good as your dumbest competitor, right? If you have someone in the marketplace that's constantly driving down rate, it may have nothing to do with the value proposition. So McGuire and Noon did a study where they took consumer buying behavior for the leisure market and for the business segment. I think the sort of the baseline measurement was for consumers, they had to at least travel more than once in the last 12 months, and they had to have done their own booking online. The baseline for the business segment was that they had to have traveled at least 6 times in the last 12 months, and they did not book through a TMC, a travel management company. They actually made their own bookings online. What they found was for the leisure group, the demographic, pretty straightforward, pretty much an even split between male and female, average age around 49. The majority of those consumers did about 72% of their travel was 1 to 5 stays, and 65% booked online more than 80% of the time. But only 54% were influenced by reviews. Now we look at the same information, but for the business traveler. Different split in terms of male versus female, 2/3 male, younger demographic, a little under 40. And you can see that over 53% of them have traveled at least 11 times during the year. And the majority of them, the vast majority of them, stayed 2 nights or more. But what fascinated me about this study was that 88% of them said they were influenced by reviews. I would have, you know, with a business traveler who tends to be more sophisticated, I would have kind of put the correlation, the opposite, right, between leisure and business. So what they did was they presented these travelers with 8 buying options. They put basically what they would see on an OTA, similar sorts of ads, and they asked them to pick where they would most likely stay. They had 3 different variables. So price was one, rating and review was another. And you can see as you go down, price is low, rating is high, the review is positive. You get down further and you have a high price with a low rating but still a positive review, and then you start falling into the negative ratings, okay? So those are all sort of the permutations and combinations of the variables that they looked at. Now the other thing that they did add in for the business traveler was loyalty, though, to a corporate travel program or loyalty program. So here's what they found with the business traveler. You can see a positive review. This is the baseline, okay? So all of the first banner is in white. There was a positive review, and it was at their preferred brand. The rating was 4.8 out of 5, and it was a $195 rate. And they had a very, very, very descriptive number of descriptive reviews with regard to the hotel. So that baseline is 1.52, and you don't have to know what that number means. It's an analysis of variance. All you need to do is pay attention to the magnitude of the numbers as they go up and down. We then see the next set of variables that come in. So a positive review, preferred brand again, descriptive reviews, but the rate goes up. So you can see, well, that makes sense, right? The probability of them purchasing goes down a little bit. Then you move on to a negative review, being the only thing that changes in the equation, still a low rate, and it goes down to 0.6. Unknown brand also played a significant determinant in purchase probability when it came to the business traveler. So the worst probability is with a negative review, even if it is with their preferred brand and a very good descriptive, description in the reviews and a reasonably good rate. But here's what's really, overzealous there. Here's what's really interesting. If we look at the baseline again for the blue band, which is the leisure traveler, you can see positive review, relatively good rate, high ranking on TripAdvisor, 4.8 and a known brand. That's a 1.9. But look when we get down to the same thing, but we raise the rate and everything else remains stable, it goes to 0.46. Here's the key takeaway here though. If you have a negative review for a leisure traveler, even if you have a low rate relative to the rest of the offerings, a high rank, a great score, and a known brand, the probability of that person purchasing is almost nil. You're absolutely taken out of the equation. So the importance of reviews can't be overstated, right? If we look at the impact, basically, of user-generated content, for the leisure traveler, reviews are critical, absolutely critical. Negative reviews just take you out of the equation. For the business traveler, they do want to know and have a good descriptive review. As a matter of fact, they said the more descriptive for the business traveler, the more likely the conversion. The other thing that mattered apparently was the quality of the review. And when they talked about quality, they were really defining grammar, punctuation, spelling, the amount of detail that was included in the sentiment. Price is important, as we know, for the leisure traveler, but loyalty matters more so, which is not a big surprise for the business traveler. So I want to go back to what Bonnie was talking about in terms of, first of all, to sum up, the importance of sentiment in reviews. That's that unstructured data, right? We can go back and say, we got a 4.2 in our value score, or a 3.9 overall. But the sentiment is what is driving purchase decisions more than anything else. So sentiment is absolutely key. The other thing is including in the pricing formula, the use of indexes. I won't go through this. Bonnie has already talked to you about it. You can find this information in any of your reputation management reports, Review Pro, Revenate, Medallia, Trust You. There are a few others out there. They are all very, very good subscription-based services. They all have kind of pros and cons, right, in terms of filterability and so on. But if we take Bonnie's example again and say, okay, well, here's how we get to where our value index is. In this example, we've got our value score is 4.1. The competitive set is 3.9. So we have a value score of 105. We want to make sure that we are in that sort of range of 98 to 104. And eventually, we want to be able to drill down with our filters to look at what those value indexes tell us for each segment or each booking channel. That'll make a difference as well to how you're going to, potentially what you're going to do with your distribution strategy, right? So let's look at a real life example. This is an actual client of ours. They're a 4-star independent boutique resort in California. And you can see that this goes from January of 2016 to February of 2017, and they have some issues here. In January and February, they're at 127 and 139. So what does that tell you in terms of pricing? Sorry? Opportunities. Bonnie called it pricing power, right? So yes, you definitely have opportunity. Then we go into what is typically their low season, which is in September, October, and November. And we see the inverse relationship, right? They're not hitting the value proposition. So what we did was we took our trusty STAR report and we analyzed our daily rates to ascertain if there was some sort of trend by day of the week. It wasn't a big analytic exercise, right? We went through, we spent 15 minutes looking at it. We looked at the historic price in this particular client has Duetto as a revenue management software solution. And Duetto enables you to look back at historic price by competitor. So I could look back from 7 days out to 0 days before arrival, so in the day, for the day. We looked at January, February, March pricing, where there seemed to be that pricing power, and we randomly selected 15% increase to start our benchmarking. And here's what we ended up with. You can see in Q1 of 2017, when we started to deploy that analytics and some of those benchmarks, we've gone from an occupancy index of 89 in the previous year to 108. Our ADR index has gone up to 119. But the variance, and Bonnie talked about the importance of index balance, we want to have no more than sort of a 10-point spread. The variance between their index balance, which was really out of whack in 2016, compared to 2017, they're pretty much in line with where they need to be. But look at the difference between their value indexes for the first quarter of 2016 and their value indexes for 2017. They're pretty much, with the exception of March, right in that sweet spot, which means, in all likelihood, that they will enjoy better, they will enjoy repeat purchase probability. That makes sense. And you see also that their RevPAR was rewarded. There's only one of those 3 months in the 2017 quarter where the RevPAR index went down marginally. So the outcome in taking, and again, I'm just using this as an example of how we need to look at new metrics and the conversion to marketing in terms of what we do as revenue managers on a daily basis. Better conversion rates are a result of getting this pricing to value and getting the value proposition right on the mark. You balance your indexes, stabilize your value proposition. Now, we all know that a value proposition is sort of a dynamic thing. It depends on the marketplace. It depends on who's looking at your property at any one time. But you can have a relatively stable value proposition. It optimizes your RevPAR, and the plus side, this was a hotel that's about little under 120 rooms, was they realized an incremental $200,000 on the top line between Q1 of the previous year. Does that make sense in terms of how to kind of connect the dots on those two things? The other thing I want to talk about briefly is the new paradigm in forecasting. The key constraints are always going to be the same. In the hotel industry, we have fixed capacity, we have low variable costs, and we have high fixed costs, and we also have a perishable inventory. So that's never going to change, right? But what is going to change is this traditional approach to forecasting, where we look at market segmentation, regrets and denials, internal and external, demand influencers, booking curve, and so on. Not saying that you won't consider those anymore, you will, but if we start to look at this shift in market segmentation, hard enough to get our arms around what a market segment is, because you get so much depending on your hotel. I have a chain of hotels right now in North America, mid-market, smaller hotels, but they're getting over 50% of their bookings are through OTA, right? So this really, really makes the idea of market segmentation very murky. The other thing that's changed, of course, is lead time to booking. And if you look at the old example from 2007, vacation rentals, usually about 3 months out. Well, now with Airbnb, they're like 5 days out or whatever. Resorts, 2 to 3 months out. Corporate hotels, 2 to 3 weeks out, and so on. So, when I was sort of 150 years ago, actually at the property level, it was a dream to forecast. Oh, I've got this many incentive, and they always pick up 90%, and I've got 20 weddings on the books. But now it's changed significantly. You look at the booking window in general, and for resorts now it's about 2 to 3 weeks. For corporate hotels, it's about 2 days. Everyone's switching over to mobile, right? And I very often in planes will sit next to someone who's actually booking their, and you can tell they're a seasoned traveler. They're booking their accommodation just as the wheels go up. So what does that do to our perspective in terms of forecasting? That shrinking window and the blurring of segmentation makes it absolutely brutal. Most of the hotels that we have have a lot of their segments coming in between 1 week and 2 days. And that's the situation for this property. This property also has an RMS. This is a different property from the last one. This is an actual snapshot from their RMS, and this is not to disparage anyone of the wonderful vendors that provide, whether it's Rainmaker, Duetto, or Ideas. They're all incredibly good, solid, sophisticated systems. But this was 10 days before arrival, and you can see on the bottom here, before we do the absolute variance, this actual snapshot had them at 0 variance on their forecast, right? 1223 to 1223, but the absolute variance is about 11%. That's 10 days before arrival. You know, you could see 11, 20, or 12% error factor if they were 90 days out or 60 days, maybe even a full 30 days out, but that's 10 days before arrival. The only point I want to make here is that the forecasting paradigm needs to change somewhat. With that particular example, the hotel had a very volatile marketplace. They had poor pricing competency within their competitive set. They had probably 80% of their pickup was between 5 and 0 days out. So all of these variables makes it hard, even for a very sophisticated system, to come up with accurate information. The other thing is the majority of the RMS vendors now are factoring in relatively new. I think Ideas is factoring in forward keys, or no, not forward keys, Insight, which is demand for airlift. So it actually looks at every transaction through GDS, and it tells you all of the different airlines coming from hundreds of different cities, what is the demand for your location. Certainly a critical piece of the puzzle for forecasting if we're talking about something, you know, a resort, like the Hawaiian Islands. So they're factoring that in. They're starting to factor in reviews and what that means. And I think probably some of the inaccuracy that we saw on the previous page is due to the fact that all of those new algorithms and variables that they're trying to work out, they're getting their hands around it, and all of their data scientists are trying to do it too. So don't feel too badly if you're not coming up with perfect forecasts today. What I think we're going to look at is more weight on forecast validation. The RMSs always tell you, Ideas is the first to say, you have to validate your forecasts. We're not telling you this is exactly what you're going to do. There's still going to be some error there, and you as the individual that knows your marketplace has to go through and say, are these assumptions logical? Does this number look a bit wiggy compared to previous months or previous years or by day of week? You know, are there things in there? So you want to validate your assumptions, and that forecast validation process with the revenue team is critical. I think that the good news here for revenue managers is you're going to find more short-term forecasts and less reliance on that traditional 30, 60, 90, which is like, yes, I don't have to do 3 months out on a rolling basis. I think once your owners know that those 90-day forecasts are becoming less and less and less accurate, is anyone faced with that right now, where they're looking at 90 or 60-day forecasts and just find they're completely off? So I think you're going to find, hopefully, that will change a little bit. We'll forecast and put more weight on value and value indexes, and we'll put more weight on the channel that it's coming from, as well as influence. I'm just going to talk about influence on, in terms of how we look at total revenue management and how we might start to look at it going forward. This is a typical example from a client of ours who's a casino hotel, and their owners were pushing them very, very hard to get rid of tour group. You can see the difference in the two prices there. One's $189, the other one's $104. But when we took out all of the acquisition costs, you know, credit card commission, distribution, pass-through fees, everything else that's in there, they actually had a total cost of $41, which brought their net rate down to $147. But then we looked at the spend, the ancillary spend, and most importantly for these owners, obviously the casino spend. And the corporate guy was only actually coming up with a revenue of $269 per night versus $624 for the tour. These people were actually getting on tour buses because they like to gamble. So they're going to put all of their money into the casino as opposed to booking of the hotel room, right? And what do we know about casinos and flow through? Probably 99% goes to the bottom line. So that's traditionally the way we've looked at sort of a basic total revenue management approach. What is becoming more common now is looking at an annualized guest or customer value. So we're going to look at what their segment is, how many times they've stayed, what they usually pay in terms of rate history. We're going to look at the acquisition costs, booking, distribution costs and everything else. And we're going to look at all of their other spend. So you can see in this particular case with Mr. Smith, not particularly creative. I'll defer to you on that later, Lauren, to spice it up a bit. But Mr. Smith basically has a total annual value of $6,900. Then we look at the second one, Mr. Brown, and he has similar spend, a little bit more. His total value is about $8,100. But what if we were to start to look more closely at social media and actually try to factor in influence into this entire thing? Because if we want to know the value of a guest, right, we're not just talking about, well, how much does he spend in the, in the spa versus this. We want to know how much he's bringing to our individual property or to our company at large over the lifetime of their of the client. One of the things that I think we need to be looking at more carefully is how social media acts as an influencer and how we might be able to use that and apply it in the future in revenue management. There's three different, I'm sure there are more out here, but there's three different sort of metrics or companies that measure influence in social media. One is Clout, one is Cred, and one's Pure Index. They do very similar things. Clout, for example, will look at engagement and so the second one I'm thinking of for Facebook, it's engagement and not outreach. Cred, anyway, they look at similar things. The influence factor for Cred is outreach, so how many times I retweeted or mentioned or replied and sent it to you. And then influence, which is how many times you retweeted, replied, or whatever, and sent it to me. And that will give you a score. Now, in the case of Clout, the Clout scores run between 1 and 100. Barack Obama has a Clout score of 99. If anyone cares at all, Justin Bieber has a score of 90. And I was saying to Lauren that I looked up my Clout score, which is a very humbling experience. I think my Clout score was 19. Anyway, what if we could take these Clout scores and know how many people some of our guests reach and actually influence on social media? And then we put some multiplier, I'm just saying, and then a miracle happened and we came up with something that made sense as a multiplier. And if you had a Clout score of, say, 90 to 100, maybe your multiplier effect was 10. And if it was 50 to 69, your multiplier effect might be, an 8 or whatever. Now I look at Mr. Smith, who had a $6,900 annual stay value, and his Clout score at 10 brings him actually closer to $70,000. Mr. Brown, who had a significantly higher long-term value than the first example, at 8,100, his Clout score is only 5, or his factor is only 5, so he actually is worth less long-term than the other one, 69 versus 40,000. So I guess just in summing up, all I wanted to do is try to continue to sort of bring the conversation with regard to the convergence of marketing and revenue management into, I think, what we might see and have to act upon in the very near future. Online marketing and social media, ongoing technology advances, they're going to continue to be disruptors in all of our business. And that's not going to go away anytime soon. And as a result, they'll have a significant impact on our tactical and strategic decision making. There's definitely going to be a move towards big data. I don't know, it's certainly out in other industries right now. People are embracing it. I don't know how well we embrace it. We usually don't like to be bleeding edge in these things. We like to take a few generations, literally a few generations, to kind of grasp these things. And revenue management and marketing will definitely continue to converge. And so that conversation that you're having with your salespeople and your marketing people having them know a little more about revenue management and having your revenue managers know more about the things that Lauren was talking about, absolutely critical. So if I were in your shoes, I'd start looking at your value indexes on a weekly basis. I would look at sentiment. You can, on almost all these reputation management reports, you can filter sentiment. And so this can very often lead to good product opportunities. You know, if you see a negative sentiment coming up constantly about a certain room type, or conversely, a really positive sentiment, it may lead to a conversation about shifting the value proposition for that particular room, right? And you're doing it according to what your guests are telling you. I would definitely establish a forecast validation process, and then finally consider how you can proactively start leveraging marketing campaigns for need periods. And we do this already, but I'm talking about in the future what you're going to see is a communication between your RMS and your CRM, say, that will say, I have a need period 8 weeks down the road, and it'll communicate with your system and say, can you please tell me which of our localized campaigns have the highest conversion? Because we should be putting that out right now, and you get that sort of conversation happening between the two systems. So, that's sort of my take on it, trying to spin off some of the stuff that Lauren had spoke about earlier. I know all of it is a lot of information to digest. Any questions or comments? Is it getting that close to the break, I guess, that everyone's sort of glazing over? I won't take it personally.
With all that data, they may need some sugar.
Yes, good idea, good point.
So, why don't we take an early break? Would that sound good to you? You stretch and have some sugar and have some coffee, soft drinks. Have 15 minutes if we could. We'll do that. Next up, revenue management, all right?
We have to show you the results. Only 6, and we're all showing for PPC 10.
Doing good.
Okay, so to answer your question, the forecast is both. It's 30, 60, 90, and yep. Well, because then the only month that we really that was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was, because she said yesterday, obviously, she drove halfway down from this level, with this pain right there on her chest. And she never felt like this pain was doing her. She didn't know what it was, so she got hard to and I got to the house, she was in a fetal position on the floor. So, she had a really bad acute vascular intestinal issue. And I think she was telling me what she did during the day. She felt the pain and she took it for some Thomas, and then she took it.
Sorry, just dropping the value.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Then she took a carbon, then she had a carbon.
Oh, my God.
So
that kind of blew up.
Yeah, so it blew up, and she didn't know what it was. So I said, you gotta convert. That's how I was pressure. So I said, be safe, take the ER, check it out. Yeah, it's a KG. That's it, just straight up. Yeah, to calm it down. And then when we got home, we had something to eat. See it, that's what you need to do. I said, it's got to come out. because that's what it is. That the streets exploded. Yeah. This is everything was normal, everything's fine, anyway, so she said she said she was scared because I felt like that. The first guy asked, and he said, blood pressure was high.
Well, yeah, because you're stressed out.
Yeah, and she said, she goes, I'm feeling some numbness in here. He said, in the right, or in the left hand, or was it the hand? She goes, no, just not much. It's typical. So she's fine. She's going to But it was kind of weird. I mean, she just Dan was so pumped, I don't know what it was. And then when she explained
Shouldn't
the
take it
Thomas
lightly. Let's get some pictures of this restaurant and send them to your friend. Make sure you do. Yeah. Make sure you do.
We have lights. Out there.
I think we need to, because we're 5 to 6:30.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't stay.
Well, I've got to go. I'll try something.
The flow has gone. So like they grab a tube and it's like such a big getting the girl from Delmont. Patrick has to tell him to stay away. Delmar. He's like, really? And then trying to get back, he goes, it's even on the signature, and I scroll down, and Delmar. And it says Delmar. He had gone down in 10 days. Like my heart was saying, I was like, please don't tell me I'm just sending all this stuff out of my phone.
I think you did that once, or you did. It was internal, you did.
I did it twice. But I wasn't quick to correct him.
Tell Marky. No, it's great.
11 years, like in me. It's me. I was in the back office one time, and I just started helping answering phones. And I literally said, sending merit marquee so many times. And I know, first of all, I have no business picking up the phone. It's the first thing you do. That's what you do. So I met Saba. Saber. Yes. So she booked the Passover dinner.
Oh, did she? How'd she say it went? Was it just a nightmare? Yeah. But sold off the freaking property.
The only other thing I wanted to chat with you about is that what do you want to do about that email that came from Nestle about Westlawn and Amanda Frank?
Oh yeah, right to give her. What would we normally charge? I'd go 50% or something.
I would expect something like that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't really advertise that to all employees, but I think knowing that she's kind of higher up the chain,
Yeah. I mean, I would say at least half.
Could at least cover cost and labor.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought we were waiting for the very end.
You're GM.
Yes.
Dan, you're the GM,
right?
Yes, I am.
But pretend like you're a revenue person.
Okay, I will. Oh, well, I am a
Not
revenue
this
person.
one, the one online.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I got it. I got
Got
it.
that
Yeah,
one?
yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you do it? Okay.
Bonnie, is this right? Did I cut too much out? Do you go to this? To share the rate card, the takeaways, and then yeah, you're good. So just don't have your features and chops for Should I just call
Did I kick it? I don't think I kicked it. No.
No, we think it's when we switch between the two.
Oh.
I'll call Amy.
Genius. Yeah, just leave it there.
That's why we pay them, right?
Yeah. Our big bucks, bro. So in. Here we go.
Is that a little too creamy?
Good.
Up a little more would be fantastic.
There you go. Or you can just sit here and hold it for the next.
You know, just what's a little arm numbness?
Right.
It's the same, I pulled from your same